Yep. Okay. Fire it up. I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of December 6, 2021.
I would move approval of the minutes as read, as distributed.
Second.
I have a couple of questions. One is on page 2, the third paragraph. I didn't recall that there was that extended MOU on a weekly basis, and I may be incorrect, but I just think it's something we should check. I don't know if the rest of you recall that.
Yeah, I think when Mike Carroll was sort of going over the synopsis of how we got to where we were, he might have mentioned something like that. I don't remember it. Everything sort of below that appears correct to me.
Yeah, that paragraph is the one that I question.
Wait,
Yeah.
sorry, what numbers are your,
This here.
okay, gotcha.
That here, yeah, 18, 19.
Okay.
20. Do you remember that?
Weekly. I thought he said something about weekly, but again,
Yeah.
it was so
I just remember that,
much info.
I thought they were done.
yeah, I
That's why
thought that what happened was that they were done, but they were still not entirely out of the building.
Right.
So, but that was an impression I got from several meetings ago, not necessarily that.
Maybe we could check on that. The other question I have is on page 5, and it's, I think it's, my interpretation may be incorrect, but towards the bottom, line 32, around then, I thought that the office was going to be open, but certain services would not be available. But the way it appears, it sounds like the whole office is going to be closed.
Well, I think that he suggested it, that was part of the discussion, and then when you look at the motion, that they would close the town office to certain business transactions between the
Okay,
hours
so you
as
think that
needed.
clarifies
That's what
it?
the way
Oh,
I would
okay.
take
Yeah.
that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
So you just want that other part about.
Yeah,
the
just like
MOU
it
broadband?
clarified, yeah.
That could be done.
Okay, anything else? Okay, all in favor? Thank you.
Is Jeff voting via Zoom?
Yes, he's supposed to be. Jeff, are you on?
See his name.
I don't think he
No,
I don't think he's
not
on.
on.
You can see if he joins,
That's all
so
right.
if we just do 4-0,
Yeah, so 4 is 4, yeah.
or, yeah.
Appointments, recognitions, and resignations. Jennifer McWayne Buchanan has been awarded the lifetime certification from the Maine Town and City Clerks Association. Congratulations.
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, that's
That's
really
awesome.
an accomplishment.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is.
thank you.
Thank you.
Consent agenda, Public Works, miscellaneous project updates, Hancock County Commissioners meeting minutes from December 7, 2021.
would move that we accept the agenda as presented.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Selectmen's reports, any selectmen's reports? All right. Unfinished business, discussion of community outreach plan by A Climate to Thrive.
If you want to-
Hi, yeah, I'm here via Zoom. Happy to chime in. If you guys want to start discussing, I also can share screen and just walk you through the proposal really quickly. Whatever would be best for you all.
I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah,
I
it
feel
is.
like it-
It looks like, who are we talking to, Johanna?
Yes, I'm here, and we also have our project coordinator, Naomi Albert, here, who developed the outreach plan and is happy to answer any questions, but also happy to answer questions as they come up.
All right, it looks like one of the first orders of business is convening folks to fill in those blanks on that declaration.
Yeah,
Or, I
so
mean-
that's, there's a couple different pieces here. One is that community outreach plan, which we've integrated the needs for joining the Community Resilience Partnership into the Community Outreach Plan. And so, we received feedback from you guys and strongly agree with it at the last select board meeting. That'd be really good to be gathering the community sooner than later around the climate action plan, so that they have a chance to hear more about the process and ask questions and kind of cultivate that understanding and support in the community that'll be so essential before May. And so we want to do that anyway. And then to join the Community Resilience Partnership, one of the things that we need to do is host a community-wide meeting where we go over the list of community actions that GoPIF has put out and identify priorities. And so we could do both in the same meeting. And we proposed January 20th in the evening after talking with Derlin and others about good timing. We think it would be good to do it via Zoom, partly, because of where COVID's at right now, but also because it will help us facilitate some breakout rooms more easily than if we did a combination of Zoom and in person. I think it'd be really difficult to do breakout room facilitation, which will be really helpful for reviewing that list of community actions. And we, have an outreach plan, kind of a publicity plan for that session ready to go, and can start rolling that out tomorrow if that sounds like a good plan for a January meeting. But you're right that another step that is needed to join the Community Resilience Partnership through the state is for town leadership, including department heads, to also complete a resilience self-evaluation, which basically is a list of questions. There's a form that GovPIF has put out, and you go through it and you collectively answer the questions, which gives the town the opportunity to kind of reflect on our position as far as resilience goes in the face of climate impacts and identify priorities for moving forward. And we would suggest what could be a good way to do that is ACT is planning to host a meeting with all department heads in the upcoming weeks anyway, to talk about the outline for the climate action plan after having those listening sessions with everybody. And so we could do that kind of review of the self-evaluation and fill it out together at that meeting as well.
Okay, and you'll set that up?
Yes, we can set that up. And question to you all is, would select board members want to be present for that self-evaluation, or do you want to leave that to department heads?
I think leave it to department heads.
Great.
I'd like to be there. I'd like to be involved.
So we can send out an invite to everybody, and those who want to attend can attend.
Okay.
Great.
What time are you thinking for that Zoom meeting?
For the community-wide meeting?
Yes.
So we had tentatively thought perhaps 6 o'clock, but are very open to feedback and suggestions for that. We're trying to find a mix of after work, but not too late since it's winter and getting dark and people like to go to bed.
Yeah, I think I like it on the earlier side, yeah.
We can go earlier than 6 if you think that would be advisable.
I think 6 is probably a
6 is reasonable.
round
Yeah.
number, easy to remember.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, we've had pretty good success with the Climate to Thrive with 6 p.m. educational events, so it seems like a good time.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Johanna, are you expecting the town to facilitate that Zoom meeting, or do you have staff and Zoom license to?
We can do that. We can set it up and we can handle registration and arrange the breakout rooms, and then we'll have ACT staff facilitating those breakout rooms. We have enough people, even if we get a lot of response, to facilitate the breakout rooms.
Great, thank you.
Of course.
Good.
So do we need any action on that?
No, I don't believe you do.
Okay.
Thank you. That was, like Martha said, it was super self-explanatory and good information and clear, and makes it for an easy discussion.
Great. Well, I want to just take a moment to introduce Naomi and have her say hello to y'all, because you guys will be seeing a lot of her in the upcoming month as we present on the climate action plan. She's been doing incredible work on the plan. So I want to just give her a chance to say hello to y'all so you can see what she looks like.
Hi, everyone. Naomi Albert here, project coordinator with the Climate to Thrive. Nice to meet you all. I'm sure I'll be meeting you again throughout the process with the climate action plan.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Yep, thank you. All right. Discussion of Community Resilience Partnership. Okay, we just did that.
Well, there's one final piece to that, to joining that. So in addition to the self-evaluation and to reviewing the list of community actions and having that community-wide session, the final piece that's involved is actually passing the resolution to join after you've completed those steps. And so it's a very simple resolution that GoPIF has put together with specific language. And basically all it says is, we intend to join the community, or we have decided as a town to join this community resilience partnership. We have completed the self-evaluation. We have convened the community to review the list of community actions and identified the following priorities. And then we appoint either said committee or said staff person to basically oversee initial kind of implementation of a plan and action, which in this case would be the town's climate action plan, because Naomi is working very closely to make sure that we are integrating GoPIF's list of priorities into our climate action plan so the town can easily apply for funding. So that could be Derlin. I don't want to, assume anything since he already has a very big job, or it could be some sort of committee, like a climate action task force. I think that the sustainability committee as it currently functions and meets is probably not best suited for that kind of heavy lift, but it could be either. And you guys can think about that and decide when the time comes to pass the resolution.
Okay, and we can do that at the board level. We don't need a special town meeting or anything. All right, good. Okay, anybody else have anything they want to add to that? Review and possible adoption of the Town of Mount Desert Boston cane policy. So, I've been thinking about this, and I Googled it. And there are a whole bunch of towns just like ours that are in the same situation, and most of them have opted to do something that hadn't occurred to me, but it's actually sounds pretty reasonable, which is to get a replica cane and distribute that replica cane and just continue doing the Boston Post Award as it's always been done, with a cane and a certificate.
Okay, I've had trouble locating someone who can produce those replicas. He used to be someone local about 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But he's no longer here. So
there have been, Gray, for example, has had one made. Dick Vander Zanden, who I guess is now in Florida.
yeah, that's the person that
Yeah.
used to do them.
That's all right, did
What's it cost to make a cane?
In 2015, it was about $220. And it's, you reuse it.
Oh, so you're talking about having a cane, having a second cane that they give back?
Yeah.
A show cane.
Yeah, so it's essentially carrying on the intent and
preserving the
preserving
original.
the actual,
Oh, so we buy one cane, you get it, you give it back, and then we give it to the next one.
yeah.
But
it's
if they
not
don't
the
give it
thing-
back, they ended up in someone's attic, like you said.
Right, so we might wanna, if we can find someone that does this, because Dick's gone,
Yeah.
we might wanna maybe get a couple of them, just in case.
Yeah, maybe Dan Fault.
No. Good idea.
Good
Yeah,
idea.
he made our
That's a
little
good
statues. We had these statues we used to give out at the short course,
Right.
and he took pity on us and made us a few of those.
Or a boat builder too,
Yeah,
can make a
Oh.
cane.
sure.
Or I think we've got someone in the back of the room that knows a thing or two about woodwork.
Woodwork.
But I'm wondering if someone at the high school might not take that on and as a community service project.
Oh, that would be neat.
Yeah, that would be really neat.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ooh, what a great idea.
yeah.
So who could we get to facilitate the high school?
We'll see.
I'll check that.
Oh, great.
Okay.
That's a great idea.
I assume it's easy to see what they look like.
Yeah, we have ours,
You have the official one.
double locked.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I'm sure I can
It
find a
doesn't- I mean, it
picture
doesn't-
online, yes.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to
We
be,
can take a picture of it.
you know, it just has to be a nice cane, right?
Yeah, I mean, I
Well-
guess we don't have to use ebony, which is what
No,
was used.
I don't think we
ebony
have to
and gold.
use ebony and gold, no.
No, I probably
Good
wouldn't use
paint,
that.
gold paint, gold paint.
I
We
can look
still
into
would
that.
need probably some kind of cap on the top of it signifying.
Well, it does, it
what
has a little, like a coin that's set in that says town of, oldest person, something like that. It's, they've got lots of pictures online, you can see it.
I'll look into
Great.
that for us.
Good.
But I mean, once we decide on that, other than that, I think the policy itself looks, or the guidelines
Oh, yeah.
look
Yeah,
pretty
it's fine.
clear.
So do you wanna, I mean,
Should we
it's a
adopt it?
policy, you can adopt it and then and we can always go back and update it.
Can we adopt it with just the change of saying that it's gonna be a certificate and the cane?
Yep,
Okay, I
Okay.
so moved, so moved.
well, okay, so you didn't wanna,
As soon as we make sure we can find one.
No, I mean, we can, as you said, we can change it, so that's our
Right.
plan tonight,
okay, so leave it as is, except,
the cane.
okay,
Certificate
That's
and a
fine.
replica cane.
My only suggestion would be, and maybe there's something like that in here, but if there was something that would leave some discretion to someone, whether it be the board or whomever, if you had someone that didn't quite check off one of the boxes, but it had, a
Who was over-
positive impact on the community, and maybe they'd only been a registered voter here 23 years, or,
Right,
so
right, so at the
if they're
discretion of
at the
the,
discretion of
I
the,
think that's a good,
I guess it would be. the
Okay.
board.
or at the discretion of the board, something like
Right.
that, yeah.
okay, so we'll leave it at
That's a
25
good
and then say,
suggestion,
Just,
yeah, too bad. Don't put that.
That's not a bad idea, though, like,
okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
just to have a
it
little.
says
yeah.
right in here,
Yeah.
it says, the board of select persons may modify these requirements by a majority vote at their next regularly scheduled meeting.
Okay,
So
Okay,
I think that right there would
covers it,
cover.
okay.
yeah, that's a good point. Thank you for doing all this
Yeah,
work,
it's
I know
awesome.
it's been a labor of love.
It
Yes.
has been, and
Yeah.
like I said before, I've had it in the works for a number of years, just
Yeah.
never actually pulled it all together.
Well, good for you.
All right.
It's been moved.
Martha made a motion.
Right,
Yeah.
I'll second it.
Move seconded, all in favor? Okay, now I'd like to take something out of order, although it's not on the agenda. And this is the addendum that was sent out to us about a broadband survey.
I didn't get it.
Okay,
I didn't get it in time to look at it either.
yeah.
I saw it. But it seems like where not everyone has had a chance to read over, I mean, it's pretty straightforward, but I don't know that we're prepared to discuss it tonight. And I saw Scott on there, I don't know if Kathy's on there, but we figured we'd mention that we're gonna sort of table it probably until the next meeting. So that you can do other things with your time besides a Zoom call the rest of the evening, if you're so inclined.
So are you moving that we take?
I would move that we table it until next meeting.
Second.
Okay, any more thoughts? Okay, all in favor? Sure, we're gonna table it. All right, new business, consider meeting for the second session of third-party requests on February 24th, 2022.
Second session.
Remember you split those
Yeah.
in two last year?
Excuse me?
You split the sessions in two.
Right,
because
so
they-
when would the first one be?
At your BOS meeting that week.
I see,
I
okay.
think there's another conflict, a planning board meeting or something.
So what day of the week is it, 24th?
Thursday, I believe.
Thursday?
It's President's Day. Can I speak up for a minute? Because I was part of the health planning of this. On Tuesday, because it's President's Day, the day before, you all are gonna meet on Tuesday. And
Right,
it's a combined meeting with the warrant committee, as it's been, historically. I think it was a very good experience.
yeah,
doing it on 2 nights instead of trying to cram
Yeah.
everybody
Right.
into one.
Yeah,
It also gives us a day in between for someone to make a courtesy call of, if you had your favorite public service group and they forgot to come. It gives them the second chance. It avoids, the board coming back and looking at that, a week or 2 later and say, well, we really like that service group. We don't know, or we have to do it on the town meeting floor.
yeah, that's a good idea.
See, I like having it just a few days apart too, because 2 weeks sometimes is just enough time to kind of forget everyone's sales pitch from 2 weeks earlier, I
We're
guess.
gonna run into something similar the week before the week of the 13th. We have the special town meeting, if I'm not mistaken, it's on the 11th, the 10th or the 11th is the special town meeting.
That was the 8th.
The 8th, sorry.
Oh, it is? Oops.
Pull my
I'm
dates out in front of me, I'm sorry.
I'm not gonna be around.
Special town meeting is the 8th, which is the Tuesday, and that would normally be the warrant committee meeting. And so we're not gonna try to meet that day. We're gonna move the warrant committee to Thursday, because both of those weeks, the planning board has their meeting on Wednesday, and we don't wanna avoid, them have to cancel their, something they were counting on at the last minute before we signed the warrant. I also brought you all copies of the proposed warrant committee schedule. I'll bring them over to you now. That's all I got to say.
Okay. That sounds fine.
Yeah.
John, I apologize, I'm not gonna be here on the 8th.
Okay, did I miss something? It says February 24th.
That's that's for the
Third
third
parties.
party request. They're
Yeah.
they also started to talk about the special town meeting on February 8th.
So
Yeah.
special town meeting the 8th, and then we would
That's
meet
fine.
regularly on the 22nd, and then again on the 24th,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, we can't do
Oh.
anything about the 8th, but
Right.
this item is just for the 24th, so why don't we,
Right.
are we good with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do we need to,
Do we need to make a motion? And
so I would move that we,
Does the special town meeting have to be on the 8th?
Yeah,
It does.
everything, the motions are
yeah.
Okay.
going now, we've got the room. we got everything
I
going.
thought you had told me a different date, Derlin, but I must be mistaken. Okay,
I would move that we approve a second session for third-party requests scheduled on February 24th.
Second that,
March 8th is the special town.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna be here March 8th. I thought you were talking February 8th.
No,
Oh, okay, March
no, I'm
8th is
talking
good.
February 24th. I'm just trying to get through the 24th.
Yeah, okay,
here.
okay, sorry.
So this is just to have a second meeting that week
Yeah,
for
okay,
the third-party requests,
Yes,
February 24th.
okay, this is
Sorry.
great, thank you, sorry.
I had a motion, a second.
Are we doing that at 6 o'clock as well?
We've usually done it.
Okay.
It's your meeting, technically, so it's just.
Yeah, 6:30.
Oh,
So we'll do 6:30 both nights.
I think I said
Yeah,
February. I
yeah,
can
whatever,
Fine.
now we know.
Okay.
Make it work for everybody.
All right. Okay, I have a motion, a second. All in favor? Thank you.
Sorry for the confusion.
It's all right.
Thank you, everybody. I think it's good. I think, we all have a better experience.
Yeah, so
This is nice.
we're going to carry the confusion right into item B, sale of spirits and fortified wine for
Oh,
consumption
my gosh.
off the premises on days other than Sunday. Place referendum questions on the secret ballot election for May 2, 2022.
Okay, so I tried to, it was a little bit long, I understand, but I was trying to give you a background and history into what had happened with this local option. And apparently it was voted on back in 1991, but it wasn't voted properly. So we have to redo that, and it has to be a written question.
Right.
And Derlin and I discussed it, and we felt that we really probably don't want to do a written yes, no referendum type question on the open floor meeting. That night's going to be a long meeting anyway. So we're going to try to piggyback it with the candidate election the day before and have it counted. And what I'm going to do is ask the state to program our tabulator so that we're not there all night long counting votes for that referendum question. But basically, it just keeps everything as it currently is. We just have to
Right.
revote it to be legal.
Yeah,
Right.
And it affects 2 businesses in town. So the Pine Tree Market and the Stonesville One Stop,
Right.
or Freshies, or whatever you want to call it.
okay.
So,
Package store.
Thank you. It was a good
Yeah.
explanation. I appreciate it.
Okay. All right,
so
we don't need a motion or anything, do we?
Well, to put it on the.
Right.
I think,
Oh, we
you have
have
to
to.
approve, it
Oh,
has
yeah,
to come
alright.
to you, and you have to agree to put it on the,
All right, well, I would move that we place this question as presented on the secret ballot election scheduled for May 2nd, 2022.
Second.
All in favor? Okay,
thank you.
Thank you.
and review of fiscal year 2023 budget, public safety.
Let's see, we've got Mike here, I believe Jim's is appearing via Zoom, I don't know if he's up there.
Yeah, I'm on here, Derlin.
Okay. Yeah, so-
One startling increase, but we were warned.
Yeah,
Well, basically what you're doing is you're accepting a brand new department and you're
Right.
expanding the footprint of the ambulance and you're running not in one location, but you're running 24/7 in 2 locations. So you put that all together and that's a pretty big lift.
Yeah, pretty big lift.
Very, very big lift.
so you've got 12 positions in here. That includes the 4 current full-timers, and worst possible case if Bar Harbor doesn't join in.
Correct. And I did learn just recently that they are probably not going to be interested in co-staffing Somerville, at least for the next 12 months. Just found that out last week in the summer. So the decision's going to be made whether we continue with going for 12 and doing our full shift and closing the door on Bar Harbor, or we can try to get by with the 9 for a month, for a year, and see if Bar Harbor will come on board in 23.
I didn't realize, honest, and maybe I'm just the only one that missed it, but I didn't realize we were that far down the road with Bar Harbor as far as those discussions go. I mean, I know it had been mentioned that they've got some issues with their Town Hill station.
Yeah, well, we've always discussed trying to combine Town Hill and Somerville. I mean, we've been talking about that for years. Then when the Northeast Harbor ambulance issue came up and we decided to renovate Somerville, that's when we really looked at it hard. Kind of said, why do we have 5 stations up there so close together? So that's when we really started to fast track, and we decided we were gonna staff that up there. And both Martin Zerk, both me and Chief Bartlett discussed the idea of staffing the Somerville station, Sharon, and then closing Town Hill. And that Somerville station would not only cover North Reserve for Marshall Quarry, but it would also cover the Heavy Iron Town Hill area for Bar Harbor. And then they in turn would most likely cover some of Otter Creek and Bar Harbor. I mean, there's a lot of give and take there. We didn't really get down into the details.
Okay.
It has been discussed, but as I said, they pretty much made the decision they want to put this on hold for at least another 4 years.
Did they tell you why they were thinking that way?
The only indication, they just said things were accelerating too fast. They wanted to put the brakes on things. The problem that makes it for us is now we have the decision whether we're going to go 4, go right to the 4 staff with Somerville and then just without Bar Harbor, or we're going to try to get by with 3 on 3 shift. And I know there's a couple of people behind me that are probably experts behind me, but running 3 per shift is a little dicey because as soon as the ambulance goes out, 2 people go with it. They're out for about an hour, 2 hours, maybe longer. So now you got 1 person left to respond to the fire call. That's not a good scenario. During the daytime, I'm here, so I can always go on the truck. So there are 2 people here during the day, but nights and the weekends.
Sounds a little thin.
Well, it's a risk. Yeah, in the summertime, it's gonna be a challenge. That, basically tell you that ambulance rolls
Yeah.
a lot, especially in July, August. That's it. I really haven't made a decision yet whether we, which way to go. I hate to close the door on Bar Harbor, but if we go ahead and hire four, there's no room for service staff. I hope you did see the deputy chief sheriff. So that's continued to go, and we are gonna try to get that done this year. So we are still working at that. As far as having firefighting team, staffing and so on.
Yeah.
It's not looking, at least for next year.
Wendy, go ahead.
I just have a couple questions, Mike. And maybe you guys, and maybe for Basil too, what happens to current EMTs that have served this ambulance service for years that either aren't qualified or don't, or wouldn't, you wouldn't hire to be a firefighter too? I mean, are we still going to have EMTs on staff, or would it only be, you would be a firefighter and an EMT hired by the town? There wouldn't be no option for,
Call people.
yeah, like a call person. So, thank you, sorry. I wanted to use the word volunteer, but I know that's not an option anymore.
So our first objective is firefighter EMT, cross-train. That's going to be our goal, to try to hire those people. If we fall short, which is a possibility, then yes, we will look at either those that are firefighter certified only and willing to get their EMT certification or license, or vice versa, maybe an EMT, but willing to go to firefighter academy and get their firefighter certification. I'm not prepared to ask the town to hire a fire crew and an ambulance crew. I just think that's way too much for a town with 2,300 people.
So the potential is there for someone that has just been an EMT.
Yeah, right, yeah, it is. And, hopefully we can provide the training. So this is done often when you can't find somebody that's fully trained in firefighter and EMT. You usually hire somebody that's firefighter certified, they can get their EMT license, or vice versa. I'd say more heavy on the EMT side. To me, it's more important to get that ambulance out the door than the fire truck. Fire truck's important, but to get that ambulance out the door, that's more important. So I think it's a little bit more leaning towards EMT, if you have that choice, we get them certified, right in.
So would it be possible if there was someone that was like EMT or paramedic, said, look, I've got no interest in the firefighting duties, would there still be a role for them if they want to be sort of like an on-call type person, if there was a situation where, we need, for medical reasons, we need extra hands on deck?
I think in a paramedic scenario, yes, because they're highly trained, highly qualified, and you need that license level to really run. Yeah. So, I don't want to speak for the whole hiring team, the hiring committee. We have a hiring committee, 3 people. We're looking at these applications. We're going through the process, but we understand that we need to employ EMTs too to keep that ambulance running, the paramedics as well. So we will make those decisions. That's a possibility.
And you're not going to know until you get through this.
Right. I mean, there's a real possibility we'll have a crew of 3, 2 firefighter EMTs, and just 1 medic with firefighter experience. They go to a fire call, the medic will have to.
Yeah.
So, but that is a very real possibility that we may have just a paramedic level training and 2 firefighters on 2 shift. I
Tom?
think, I think Basil will agree with me that the priority is to try to get medics, at least 1 medic per shift. That's the goal of it.
And you'll still have a role for call firefighters? That just are?
No,
Yeah.
we will, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But I'll be honest with you, the days of the call firefighters coming in and filling shifts are pretty much gone. So we still have that call force, and they still help us out tremendously, weekends and nights when they're not working. But we just can't find the individuals to come in, fill shifts.
Tom?
I think the question that I'm getting from Wendy and Matt is there gonna be room for call force EMTs? Not the ones we're gonna hire, but like fire
firemen, are we gonna make our firemen that aren't EMTs take an EMT class if they wanna be just on the call force? You know, you're gonna make, I could name names, I'm not gonna, but, you know,
Yeah,
I
like
think
I
of
was-
several people that are firemen that aren't EMTs. We're gonna make them take EMT classes, and then are we gonna take the dozen people on the ambulance service that have no interest in applying for this job, but wanna be available to help? Am I getting this right?
That's exactly,
Are
like, what I was
they
thinking
gonna
was,
have a space in our fire department as just EMS, so they can either do transfers or do, you know, a fire
Drives
scene where we
even,
need
I mean,
firemen,
right,
we need ambulance people, we're gonna welcome, I think that's what.
that, yeah, I wasn't necessarily applying for your job, but will there still be, I mean, I think we're gonna need them if
I
I
didn't mean
hear
to put
you.
words in your
No,
mouth,
no,
but I
thank
think I
you.
wanted to try to explain it better, because I understood where you were coming
Yeah.
from.
No, and I just, like, I know there are people that may not wanna be, and I don't know all the qualifications of a firefighter, like, if they can drive and, say, pump the truck, would they be qualified to be a firefighter EMT? You know, or what kind of physical agility tests does a firefighter have to do versus an EMT? I mean, I'm sure there's things but I just was worried that you know, are we gonna have enough people to cover our community for our, whether it's fire or EMT?
Right, so your question is just on the call firefighters, not full-time. Your question, you're
I
asking
just,
about the on-call.
is there room for that?
Well, yeah, certainly, yeah, I'm not kicking anybody off the fire department.
But what about the
And-
EMTs?
And if they want to join and just have an EMT license level, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I just can't promise those people that want to be on the on-call force that I'm going to be able to give them hours. Because traditionally, when I try to fill a spot, I put out emails and texts, and nobody comes in and says, I'll fill that shift. So I can't promise an on-call firefighter, yeah, you will get 15 shifts this year. They may, because, you know, we all take vacations and sick and stuff, but I just can't promise that. But on the on-call side, if you have an EMT license and or firefighter 1 and 2 certification, you're certainly welcome to be on the fire department. Yeah.
And then just because I don't know the breakdown of your wages, is this keeping, like, the current fire department, the firefighters at their pretty much current wage?
No,
Everybody's getting a
not
raise.
if we transition to 24/7. When we transition, or if we transition to 24/7, and those working 12-hour shifts will be working 24-hour shifts. So actually, they chose 48-hour shifts.
So they get more.
No. Well, their wages, their annual wages will be the same, but their pay per hour will drop. because
So they're
work-
working a lot more hours, but getting paid
Working-
less?
They're working more hours for the same pay.
Tom,
So let's think about that for a minute, and I'd like the board to think about that. Working more hours and paid the same, does that seem fair to anybody? You're gonna give these guys a pay cut? But why doesn't, hey, geez, people can't come to the town office on weekends, why don't we open up the town office on Saturdays, but we'll tell these girls that we're gonna give, hey, don't worry, we'll still give you the same money this week as you did last week.
Hey, Mr. Chairman,
Friday. So
Yeah.
I don't, this is, to me, is wrong, and this is gonna put a bad taste in our hiring system that we're gonna cut.
hey, Mr. Chairman,
yeah, who's speaking?
this is Lincoln Milstein. Can you identify the previous speaker?
It's Tom Wallace.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to clarify, and I was trying to figure out the math as I went 12 positions, and so that was my question. I guess I don't understand. Like, I'm just thinking of, if we're expecting them to work more hours, like if they're gonna work 48, then theoretically, they're actually taking an hourly cut in pay, even though maybe at the end of the year, they might have brought home the same amount, but they might have worked an extra 300 and some hours. And am I correct that a few months, I've been here longer than I thought, we did a study to kind of make sure we were equal
Yeah,
to
well,
communities like us,
Yeah,
and we
and-
raised the hourly pay for that reason?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
basically, what you're talking about is everyone was positioned under a salary band. Firefighters and police patrolmen were put onto the same band. And that's where they are now. But everyone, at that time, everyone was based on a 40-hour week. Okay? So if you're going to be paying the same hourly rate, you're going to have to figure out a schedule to hold them to 40 hours, because if you're going to go to 50 hours or 53 hours or 48 hours at that same rate, then they're going to be way above what that pay grade is for the year. So you've got to make some decisions there. If you want to do increased hours, I guess you do have the choice if you want to pay that same rate, only you'd be kicking them up quite a bit in salary. I mean, you'd be probably up around 75,000 a year as opposed to 58. But that's a decision that would have to be made, is how you want to do it. If you want to go onto a traditional firefighter shift, that's one thing. If you want to hold them at 40 hours, all these folks, and figure out a schedule around that, no problem. But I don't know how that works, so
Yeah,
that's up to you.
Can I?
Go ahead, Mike.
I agree, you know, the pay scales was set up for individuals working 40 hours a week. They were not working 53 hours a week like we're proposing after the 24/7 shift.
Okay.
Which, some of that 53-hour week, you have to remember is downtime. Yes, if they're in bed, the pager goes off, they have to get up and go to a call, but it's not a traditional, you work 8 hours and go home and go to bed. It's a 24-hour, 40-hour shift. So, yeah, the decision is your people. I mean, if you want to boost that wage line well over $1 million just for the firefighters, that's fine. But you just have to keep in mind, we're going to be way out of whack with comparable wages for the whole state as far as firefighters goes, because we're going to be on the way upper end, which may not be a bad thing. But it'll change the dynamics of the fire service, I think, in our local area too. So these are some of the things you have to keep in mind when you're talking about wages and changing wages and things like that. So I think the pay scale that we came out with is compatible with the area fire departments, right?
Yeah.
You know, yeah, so we're on par with Bar Harbor, Ellsworth, Bucksport, all those full-time fire departments.
Yeah.
That do 24/7 shifts.
So the question is, though, it's a question of management and how you manage their time. And that's not something we're gonna do from the board. That's gonna be something you do. And I'm assuming that towns like Bucksport have been down that road before and have it all figured out. So, right?
You mean the pay and?
Yeah, just, I mean, you know, you're paying somebody for a benchmark 40-hour work week,
Mhm.
and you're not paying them for a 56-hour work week. You're managing their 40 hours so that, you know, you've got coverage and you're not incurring a whole bunch of overtime,
Okay.
right?
So you're-
Otherwise, the benchmark would be skewed in every town across, you know, wherever there's a full-time department.
Yeah, I'm not following, but that's fine. So you're proposing to keep our 40-hour schedule, but try to cover 24/7?
I can't even begin to make recommendations. All I'm saying is that the models are out there and they're obviously working in other communities.
Yep.
So if Bucksport is doing it well and they've got a benchmark, you know, as you did, you went and you figured out a 40-hour work week, and this is what the annual salary would be, okay? That's great. I'm sure they did the same thing, but somehow they're using those 40 hours in a way that doesn't incur, you know, overtime that's gonna drive the budget over $1 million. right?
I think just the wages will drive it over $1 million if you keep the pay that they currently are. And
See,
working-
none of those
and working 56
firefighters were
hours
set
a week.
up on a 40-hour week. When most departments went into full-time, they went into those non-traditional 48, 53, whatever they were. That's what people were hired under. They weren't hired as 40-hour week workers like ours were. So you've got two choices. If you either go to a non-traditional or non-traditional for us work schedule, or you keep, and the wages, that for the hourly wage would go down, the annual would come up, or you take the 40 hours and maintain it somehow. Those other companies didn't face that because they started off at that
Right.
when they went
Well,
full-time.
if-
We did, we started off a full-time department on a 40-hour week. Now we're looking to try to expand that to a 24/7. So there's really, I don't know how you do it.
How many people will be affected by this change from 4? The rest will be hired new, so this will be what they're hired at.
Correct. This is what we've advertised for the positions for.
And just so everybody's aware of the difference, it's 830 extra hours a year between the 40-hour schedule and the 56.
Well,
830 hours.
In a year's time, so that's what you're adding to
And
their.
you're away from home.
and theoretically not getting paid for? Is that what I'm understanding?
Well, I think you have to look at it both ways. I would agree if you're asking someone to work an extra 16 hours a week, they should be compensated to some degree.
Isn't it more 8 hours a week?
I thought we
Chairman,
were-
can I try to help?
Yes, please.
Yes,
Can I
yes.
just-
Your, the way public safety wages are done is very, very different from what everyone's used to. There's a paragraph in the Fair Labor Standards Act, we refer to it as a 7K exemption, that allows you to average hours over work periods to avoid overtime and take advantage of all the things we're talking about. And probably the best resource for opinions on that is the town's attorney, and I know we've sought it out and gotten approval. We used to use the same kind of averaging of hours for the police department for years. We've moved away from it, but it was effective. It's not that these people aren't getting paid for hours, it's that their pay is being averaged over hours in a different way. That's my understanding of how it all works, and I hope that helps a little.
I was just gonna add that you also have to look at, there is a benefit to some degree, you can't put a monetary figure on it necessarily, but of working that longer shift, for example, because when you do have away time from work, you get longer blocks of time with training, which is a positive. And I imagine when we're recruiting, as we know, it's hard to find people here on the island. So it's sort of, you can cast your net a little wider when you're telling people, okay, you're coming on for a 48-hour shift or whatever it may be here. So there is some value to that, but it is hard to look at someone who's already there and say, hey, you're going to be away from home longer during the week, but you're sort of getting the same. So there's got to be a balance there somewhere, I would think.
I could put them right back to where wages they are right now. That's the board's wishes.
So, and not to throw a wrench in this, but there are other schedules out there that would allow you to basically keep their wages the same and have their annual pay relatively the same. And if you look beyond the departments listed, if you were to go to Bangor or some departments in that area, they operate a 42-hour schedule. One of the drawbacks to that schedule is that it requires another crew. So it would require, if you had a shift of 3, you'd have to hire another 3 people to do it. But to be competitive, a lot of those bigger departments do those things to run, so they're not working quite as much. And it gives them more time off. really, it's a kind of a big sell. And in an area like ours where you can't afford to live here, and we're really gonna be, the people that work here, a lot of them may end up living in the Bangor region. You may want to look at some of those faraway departments and see what they're doing. So just to make sure that we are competitive, because, I mean, as we talked about with the ambulance, our biggest thing is finding trained employees and enough people to work here. And I just want to make sure that the board considers, that if we are gonna have full-time people, that we're able to hire the people that we want and make sure we can fill these positions down the road. So, I know a lot of the local, like I work for Bar Harbor, we do a 56-hour schedule. And we've also lost a fair amount of people to places that work the 42-hour schedule. And I know one of the things this town's really enjoyed over the last few years, and I'm sure Mike has, is that there really has been no turnover in the fire department. He's been able to, maintain a strong workforce there, and we've seen the same faces for many years, and I think it's important that to have that going forward, that the town makes sure that their departments are competitive with other departments out there, and acknowledging the fact that it is expensive to live here, and it's hard to live here. I think we want to make sure we're putting ourselves in a good position to get the best candidates that we can get, because as we've all seen, statewide, it's hard to get the right people right now. And I'd just like to see us, if we're starting this out and Mike's gonna have, this big task of hiring these people, it'd be great to give them the tools to be able to hire the right people. And I'm not saying it's something you gotta figure out tonight, but there are some other options out there.
What would be your recommendation, Basil?
I personally think 42-hour schedule is the best way to maintain your employees long-term and to keep them. And
But that would also require us to hire an additional shift, which is
expensive.
Yeah.
Which is that's the inherent problem with it.
Expensive and difficult.
Right, and that's the thing.
Yeah,
So
we're gonna have a hard
yeah.
time. just-
would you be better off? I guess I don't know what, and Mike, maybe this is to speak, you're what's easiest for you, but I don't want to. Really, I think all the town departments. I think you're gonna have to look, in the years to come, that it's gonna be hard to hire people all around, and maybe different incentives are gonna have to be looked at, throughout the town. Maybe it's not just the fire department that's got a problem going forward. Maybe it's something the town needs to look at as a whole thing, not just the department of the fire.
Yeah.
So, hope that helps. This is more confusing.
I did look at the 42-hour shift, but just knowing that we were increasing our full-time staff, and I just trying to be fiscal responsible and not try to add another shift, at least for the first year, anyway, to try to keep the numbers down. That's the first report.
Well, and this is a big change, obviously, but it doesn't mean that it's gonna be the end result. And I'm sure there's things that will be learned, especially over the first couple of years, I would think, where we may end up, you may be back here in a year or two saying, you know what, we need to switch the schedule around this way and we do need another crew. But I think it'd be much easier to do that than sort of go with the other, it's easier to add people. Well, maybe it's not that easy, but it seems easier to add people than it is to eliminate positions, obviously, if you decide, we didn't really need to do it that way. So I think if we kind of let the line out slowly and learn as we go, that's probably the way to do it. And it won't be perfect, and there'll be bumps in the road, and we all just need to realize that we're gonna have to endure that as we sort of get to the ultimate goal.
Is there a middle ground we could look at in terms of salaries? I mean,
Well, the salaries are set by the town manager first.
Yeah.
So I bring my information to him, how many people we need,
right,
and basic information of like comparative salaries with Bar Harbor and Ellsworth, trying to compare local, and the salaries set by him. You'd have to have that conversation probably with the town manager. I don't know what our wiggle room is to increase.
We can increase whatever we want. Just
Hey,
spoke
raise.
about them.
Tom?
I mean, sure, there's always wiggle room. We can pay these individuals. Whatever you want to pay them.
Tom, go ahead.
You guys are talking salaries, and it's not a salary, it's an hourly position. There's gonna be guys that call out sick, gonna be guys that fill in and get overtime. I mean, so it is an hourly position, and I hate it when you guys, I guess, use the word salary. It's not, unless you wanna make it a salary position, it's not a salary. Mike has a salary position. You know, Jim Willis has a salary position, Tony has a salary position, department heads, but not employees.
Yeah, well, that's how we consider it in the budget, because it gives us a number. If, you know, we had a moving target,
Right.
you know, based on hourly rates.
Right, and then you figured it, like Mike's figured in overtime, which is a hard number to figure, because you don't know if someone's gonna get COVID, sick, die, you know, somebody who's in the armed service, go away for 6 months, you know, on the fire department. And now he's gonna fill that shift and pay overtime because we might not have the call force to fill it. That's a hard number to fix. You don't know how you use it.
Well, why don't we do this, at our next meeting, we'll bring back that schedule that Basil had talked about, and we'll show you, compared to what it is now, we'll show you what the.
It would be helpful to have several alternatives for us to
Well,
consider.
yeah.
And at least for me, I think clear,
Yes,
you know, and I'm not saying it has to be names and who's losing, but just to try to understand, because I just kept thinking, like, if we've got 4 people already on, and again, I don't have a lot of experience with these shift work, you know, and I'm thinking hourly and then overtime. And so I just know as an hourly employee, if you wanted me to work more hours,
you want more money.
I'm not doing it for less money.
Yeah.
So I need to just learn a little bit more about that too, I guess.
Tom?
Another thing that you guys gotta consider is that you're asking the guys that get hired. They get hired as firemen. They get hired to be firemen. They got hired and paid to be fired. Now you're throwing another whole monkey wrench into them. Granted, 2 of them, but now 3 of them were already EMTs, or, you know, have worked on that to get the EMTs beforehand, and part of the ambulance service. But still, it's an expectation of their job, wasn't in their job description when we hired them. Now you're throwing something else into them. Giving them more responsibility, more reason to be up in the middle of the night, more, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
And more training.
just take that into consideration, and also, the fact, like, I think Basil's getting to the point of, if we wanna hire good people. Good work isn't cheap, and cheap work isn't good.
Yeah.
Correct? We don't need to hire, Mike doesn't need 12, you don't need to hire 5 or 6 flunkies that can't get a job somewhere else in the state. We actually need to steal people from other towns. Because that's all there is out there, right, Basil? There isn't people just floating around looking for jobs. They're looking at, they're probably not the ones we want to hire. So let's hire some good people this time. And if you don't hire good people, then we've got to train them, and that's gonna cost a lot of money. You send somebody to paramedic school, or even the EMT school is gonna be expensive. And can we send them, we can't afford to send 4 or 5 people the first year away for training. But yet, that's one of our expectations is 6 months. So let's spend the money. I mean, granted, I'm a taxpayer, I don't wanna spend money, but we have to do this.
Mike, is the figure that you have there, is that for 12?
Yeah, that's for 12, yeah.
So just kind of as an idea, and this is something that I don't, if you went with 9 people, if you had shifts of 3, but you had 4 shifts, that would be your number. So if Mike had 3 people on a shift with 4 shifts to do a 42-hour schedule, that is what it would cost. Obviously, if you had 4 people, it would be more,
Right, but are we going for 4 per shift?
I mean, that's what you gotta figure out. If that is, then obviously, it all depends on what that.
Well, eventually we're going 4 per shift, because I know if we keep maintaining our wages, then we're not gonna get co-share staff with our, I don't think that's gonna happen. So we're gonna have to go along. So we have to go at least with 4 per shift. Which is why, we just have to hire 12 instead of 9. 9's hard enough.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman? We can come back with some numbers next week. if
That
you
would
want,
be
some schedules.
helpful. That'd be helpful.
Was that Dave? Who was that?
It's Jake Wright.
Jake.
I have just a little input that might be helpful for this. There's no one in the town that is not eligible to be classified as an exempt salaried employee. The minimum that's set by federal guidelines is about $35,000. Every employee for the town is over that amount. Essentially what that means is that everyone is calculated based on a 40-hour work week, regardless of whether or not we work it. And so that doesn't fix the problem that we're talking about, but it's context to keep in mind that everyone sitting here right now having this conversation is essentially working for free in the same way that we're worried about for the firefighters. Because all of our salaries are calculated based on a 40-hour work week, even though many of us don't do that. So the larger point of, maybe salaries in general need to be reconsidered with that in mind is something to, consider, but firefighters are not entirely unique in this problem.
Jake, I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're saying. Like, if you've got a town clerk that works 40 hours, then they get paid for 40 hours. But I would expect if that town clerk works an extra 12 hours.
Nope.
You don't get paid for those
Nope.
12 hours? How is that even legal?
Well,
Am I missing something?
I
It's
don't
on
get
salary.
paid for,
It's called
I
salary.
don't get
It's on
paid
salary.
for being.
Oh, you're
here.
not hourly.
No. Salary.
the lab?
Volunteer.
Yeah, that's right.
And where we draw that line currently is somewhat arbitrary because the federal minimum is essentially about $35,000. Everyone that's an employee of the town is eligible to be considered salaried and therefore, work X number over 40 hours and not get paid for it. But, prior decisions have, led us to, for example, consider a police officer someone that deserves to get overtime as opposed to, the town clerk. If they work overtime, they don't get paid for that. And so where that line has been drawn has been, I don't want to say arbitrary, but it's been based on previous conversation and thought and arguments. And essentially what the conversation that's happening right now is whether or not to move firefighters from the police officer category into the town clerk category.
Well, whatever the case, I don't think we should be expecting these folks to work and not be compensated for their time. So.
We can come back with some, I think what we'll do is get together with Mike for our next meeting. We'll
That would be
come up with
helpful.
some
Thank you.
numbers and stuff, and you can take a look and see what you would want to go with. We can easily do that, so.
That'd be good.
I got a question.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's helpful. Has the town ever looked at like expanding benefits as far as
we did that for public safety. We went up to the top, years of service plan as opposed to age of retirement plan. So, yeah, we did that in 2017, basically.
So
We did a big wage and benefit survey, which we made some huge increases. So, yeah, so that has been done.
Only other thing I guess I would add, first of all, Chief Willis just must be loving this because he hasn't had a question all night so far. But what I would say is, thank you, Mike, for all the work that went into this. And ultimately, we can see different options, but you are the department head, and ultimately, for better or worse, it's going to be, you're certainly more qualified to make the final decision than anyone sitting up here. Tom's got a question.
Yeah, Tom.
Here, comment. It has nothing to do with that fire thing. I was glad to see that Mike is up for a raise this year. Because he's well deserved of that, and maybe you ought to think that over too, is that enough? Compared to other department heads. Because he's been working, he's got twice as much responsibility on his plate now than he had before.
Well, he certainly will with a raft of full-time employees.
I know he's going up, but I don't think in the past, that job rate has been one of the lower paid department head jobs. But that's just as important as I believe, the police side of it, so. Think that one over. I'm not trying to spend more money, but I'm just saying, he's got a lot on his plate.
Then I just have one more question, because why not? Mike, when you look at training, like I would expect that is nearly impossible for you to even think about when you don't even know what you're gonna be hiring, correct? Like potentially, like we said, you could have a really good firefighter that you need to send to EMT or paramedic or vice versa. So I suspect that's also a huge concern, or.
Well, it's a concern, yeah, you'll see a lot of these numbers were increased,
Yeah,
obviously, in
obviously.
connection with additional staff.
And that makes complete sense to me.
And the training was one of it. I'll be honest with you, it was kind of a crapshoot, but I do know basically how much EMT classes cost,
Okay.
firefighting class, so based on the worst case scenario, bringing half and half
Okay.
in.
Because I don't know that, so I was like, I don't know if that's be even enough when I think about what classes cost.
Right,
So,
right,
okay.
yeah.
Mike, what is fire captain? What is that line?
The fire captain is going to be our fire officers from now on. Right now, we have one captain and one lieutenant, and we're going to promote the lieutenant up to captain, so we'll have two captains. And one of the reasons we're doing this is we're trying to get us in line with our harbor's officers, that are full-time officers, or captains as well. And they're on call, I think they have a lieutenant or two in their on call, so we wanted to try to be in line with them.
How do we benchmark compared to Bar Harbor?
As far as staff?
Salary? I mean, as far as what we're paying?
We're paying more.
We're paying more.
Oh, yeah. This is one of the reasons why I have a little bit of concern about keeping the wages and trying to co-staff with Bar Harbor, because if you put somebody making $30 an hour and somebody making $20 an hour doing the same job, it ain't gonna work.
Yeah.
So these are one of the reasons why the adjustments too, not the only reason, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that'll kill that deal anyway, if that happens.
And just, to add to it, do we have a plan B? If you can't hire 5 good people, or 6 or 7, or however many we might need or want,
Yeah, as far as the hiring goes.
and to safely protect our community from fire and ambulance, is there a plan B?
We would have to contract at that point.
Yeah.
That would be a plan B.
Contract.
Which would be about $750,000.
I was just gonna say, which would,
So, and you would have no control except to terminate the contract. You become a client as opposed to a collaborator at that
Okay.
point.
Thank you. Sorry, Mike.
Yeah. I have a quick question, just to
Yeah.
ask the firefighters in the room, and, you know, I'm supportive of something that's gonna work, and we want, you know, to fill these shifts for everything, and I've heard two numbers, I've heard the 53, and I've heard the 42-hour work week. How uncommon would it be for a firefighter that lived off island that have a 42-hour shift here in Mount Desert, but also do another shift in Brewer, as an example? Are there people that would, I mean, is that the type of person we're trying to find? Or is that just unheard of, that's just too much in the week?
Well, I mean, I think you find that a lot of firefighters end up having, if you want me to answer that.
Please.
That a lot of firefighters do have a second job, and unfortunately, I mean, I think a lot of it is out of necessity because they need the money. But I think it would be great if, you know, this was a place where they didn't have to have a second job, especially with commuting, you know. But, I mean, look at me, for example, I work for the harbor, I work 56 hours a week over there, and I work 30 hours a month for the Northeast Harbor Ambulance Service, and I take care of 3 kids every waking moment that I'm not doing that. So, and I think you'll find that, especially in EMS, people work a lot of hours to get by, and it's not always the best way to do it, but it's kind of what's happened. So, and I think during the pandemic, it's shown that that's not gonna work. I mean, people have gotten burnt out, and you see it in the field that there's just less and less EMTs and paramedics out there that wanna do this field, and a lot of them don't wanna work a second job, which is one of the reasons that the ambulance service has kind of gotten into the situation where we're in, because we had transitioned from a volunteer service where we basically run by mostly community members. People would respond from home, go on these calls. And then we started to rely on per diem, you know, part-time workers that we brought in from other agencies. But during the pandemic, you know, people would work their full-time job, and the last thing they want to do is go get exposed to illness more. And so, you know, it's really become people have started to just rely on their main job. And so I think it's important that we try to make their main job as good as we can, you know. And I say that, and I'm also a taxpayer, so I realize I'm making my taxes go up by saying that.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask Tom Wallace a question?
Yes, go ahead, Lincoln.
Is it true that some Mount Desert firefighters volunteer in Southwest Harbor?
It is true.
Now, what, with all the pressures that you have, why would you volunteer in another town?
Different atmosphere. For me, it's, here I'm the assistant chief, and for me to go to Southwest and be a call firefighter with no, real expectations or mandatory, you know, demands, and I can go and do the job I'm told. So it's something just, it's hard to explain, I guess. It's something a little bit different. I'm still a member of Bar Harbor, but that was because years ago, I did a lot of fill-in shifts over there, because I wanted more experience, and I really enjoyed the crews that were there at the time, the brotherhood of that. So I think you'll find that in a lot of different smaller towns, if there's people involved in more than one fire department. No, I don't give 100% to Southwest, probably like I should, or like, you know, maybe what they kind of wish or whatever. I don't make it to all the trainings, I don't make it to all the meetings. Obviously, this is my home and has been since 1985 when I joined the Northeast Harbor Fire Company. So I think that you'll find that it's just a different, people look at that to go to other towns for different atmosphere. Change, because not every fire department's the same, not every chief's the same, not every officer's, you know what I mean? The whole scenario is not the same. And over there, you know, I mean, we're pretty much volunteer. We don't get reimbursed as well as we do here as on-call people, you know what I mean?
Well, Tommy Chisholm in Southwest Harbor is very proud of the fact that he's created an atmosphere that attracts a lot of volunteers like you.
Correct, but Southwest Harbor is different than Mount Desert. I mean, we don't have those kind of people or younger people over there, I mean, over here like they do in Southwest. This is a different story. When I first started, probably if you combine all the departments and Mike, we probably had over 100 people in the town, volunteer firefighters. John, you were a firefighter, you know what I mean? But times have changed, state mandates have changed, things have just, the world has changed, and people can't give up that time. It takes a lot to be a firefighter now, a lot. Let alone an EMT, you know what I mean? An EMT, just an EMT, a medic is even worse. So those are the things that, as state mandates and all that stuff, has been good for the health and safety of the firefighters, but it's also been bad for the communities because they're losing the people that have the time to do all this.
Thank you.
Kind of one more thing, just about the pay. If you're gonna look into the pay numbers, I think an important question to maybe ask some of these communities that you're gonna compare to is to see how well they've been able to hire new staff under their model. Because I think some of those answers might help you get to the answer you're looking for.
Yeah, that was actually a question I had for you, Mike, is what's your feeling as to how easily we're gonna be able to recruit 8 new full-time firefighter EMTs? Do you have any kind of?
We just started the recruitment process. I've got a few applications in. To be honest with you, I'd be shocked if we could make that quota. We do, the pay that we're offering anyway right now is, comparable to other communities. As the town manager says, we do offer a very good retirement package. It's better or just as good as most fire departments in the state. But it's going to be a tough sell. Like these guys have said, anybody we hire, most likely anybody we hire is going to have to travel. I mean, the days of hiring local people are gone. You just can't afford to work for the town and live here. You just can't do it. So.
Basil?
And just to add into the benefits, just because I know a little bit about this, is that what you're competing against as far as retirement goes, a lot of communities, especially through the pandemic, have increased their mainstay retirement. So instead of what we have now, where we can retire in 25 years here in Mount Desert as public safety and get 50% of your highest years, a lot of these other departments like Bangor, Hamden, you can retire in 25 years, but they pay you 2/3 of your highest years. So while they're similar plans, like that's what you're competing against. And so it's important to know that that's out there and that is what you're competing against. And for a young person, seeing the end of their career, they can stay here, or maybe after a few years here, they want to go to Bangor so they can retire with 2/3, retirement instead of 50%. So, and maybe, maybe the model is, maybe this is a starter department and we kind of have that turnover because, that's just the way it is. And maybe that's what you have to look at, but you just got to realize that I do think there's that potential problem that if we're not competing against those departments, we can lose people. And we will lose people. It's not if we can, we will.
Yeah. So I'm assuming the overtime number you've got in here is taking some of this into account.
taking.
Some of this, the required overtime amount for a
Oh, you mean
full-time.
staff shortages? It was bumped up a little, but not for that. Again, the overtime, you have to remember that the schedule that's proposed, they're working 53 hours a week, so you get 3 hours a week overtime, 52 weeks a year. So that's why the overtime line has gone up.
Gone up 500%.
Well,
That's a big bump.
3 hours for 9 people, 3 times 9 times 52, that's 1 hour.
So it's only 3 hours overtime in a 53-hour?
Per week. So what they'll end up doing is firefighters will average 56 hours a week. Some weeks they'll only maybe work 40 hours, some weeks they'll work 60 hours. But under the Fair Labor
Oh, I
Standard
see.
Act,
I see.
Chief Lewis referred to, we are allowed, when I say we, public safety is allowed to average out their hours over
I
a
see.
defined cycle of period. It could be 2 weeks, could be 3 weeks, could be 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And then you average out the pay. Under federal labor standards, we're allowed to pay straight pay 53 hours without overtime. After 53 hours, it's paid.
I see.
So these individuals will work 53 hours a week and get 3 hours overtime every week. All week.
I think that we're gonna have to take some number and move forward and just be prepared to adjust as we go. Make sure that nobody gets left behind, nobody's getting something somebody else isn't getting. Be totally fair about it, but be mindful that we probably are gonna be changing these numbers. Okay, but I think to move forward, I think we're gonna have to.
Well, can we have to have something on the budget. We gotta have a budget to move forward. I think I like the suggestion that Derlin and Mike are gonna talk some more and come back to us with some alternative proposals, some with shorter work weeks possibly, some with higher wages, hourly wages possibly, so we have some possibilities we can look at. I think we've heard a lot of good points tonight. I mean, I really appreciate, Tom, you coming in, and Basil. It's been very helpful to hear your perspective and your thoughts, and I think, and Mike, you've done a lot of work on this. And we want to do the right thing. We just, as Wendy said, we're not experts in this, so we need to take your input and have some ideas proposed to us with some good arguments, and then we can make a judgment.
And are they hired at a pay scale? Like if I'm a firefighter that has 3 years experience, I'm gonna get a certain scale, but someone that's got 10 years experience would be at a higher scale? Is that how you do it as well, or no?
We have done that before. The last hire, we hired at a higher rate because he had several years' experience on the on-call.
Right, that makes
part of it.
sense.
So
Okay.
we did start, that individual started at a higher rate than we normally would start
Yeah.
at entry level.
Okay.
So we have done that before. We are also built in the budget, you'll see stipends.
Yep.
We never had. That is for the pay those individuals that have a higher license into level, more money.
Okay.
So it's kind of an incentive to advance your license level, but also hopefully it'll help a little bit in tracking
Okay.
these.
And Basil, is there, like your EMT 1 and EMT 3 or whatever, there's that
So
levels?
there's 3 levels. There's a regular, just a plain EMT, as they say, or EMT basic, as they used to refer to it.
Basic, yep.
And then an advanced level.
Yeah, and then
there's a
paramedic.
paramedic.
Okay, so there's 3 levels. Okay. Thank you.
I think that's one of those things, like, we've got so many questions tonight, and unfortunately, it's gonna take the experience to actually get the answers, but I was thinking about that too, like, obviously, it would be better for the community, the higher up sort of the training that our EMTs receive, the better. And we've been fortunate with the ambulance service. I think you've had people that just, out of their own interest and care about it, have done it, and, you know, some kind of stipends and things like that will help, and we may get to the point where we need to sort of increase the motivation to make sure we've got the level that's best for our community, so. And I did notice if we're, that Chief Willis, your patrolman budget went up. Just thought I care to explain.
Spread it around.
No, there's actually a few explanations in the police budget that might lead to misunderstanding. One of them is probably my salary line. You notice that looks like it's gone up. It hasn't. It's just being accounted for differently. The salary that you've had in years past with me reflected what I would cost if I was only working for Mount Desert. I've been paid quite a bit more than that for years, and because of the work in Bar Harbor. So what we've been budgeting has never really been my salary for more than 5 years, I think. So we tried to be as transparent as we can, and what you're seeing on there now is my salary, but you're only responsible for 40% of that. You're going to get 60% of that back on the revenue side from Bar Harbor, and you'll see that when you look at your revenue budgets. And the patrolman line, there's a little data entry error that needs to be corrected. We're going to do it tomorrow. The reason that's up is we still only have the same amount of people working. It's that, you remember last year, we have one of our officers who's been ill and only been able to do light duty, and we've kept him on. He's actually quite busy helping us with cases. He was budgeted under a part-time line last year. That's that 51,440 line in our budget that now says $44,000. Tomorrow's adjustments will reduce that line back down to around 12,000, and his expense has gone up into that patrolman line. So while it may look higher, once we make the adjustment, it's really all the same thing with just the standard 3% increase on it. Does that help you?
I just wanted to give Mike a break, so thank you.
Okay. Happy to do it. He deserves it. And if you want to, Dave Kearns is on here, and I asked him to be ready to talk about our dispatch. There's a bit of an increase there with software, and Dave, why don't you tell him what's that about?
Yeah, and that the increase with the dispatch kind of changes the significant one there in the middle.
We can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
As well as
Yeah, Dave, your connection is kind of iffy. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about this because it's an increase because of our dispatch consoles. You've heard me talk about it for years, and we're getting ready to purchase those. And they will come with a essentially enhanced support because they're IP-based dispatch consoles. I bring up dispatch consoles because these will be connected to Bar Harbor consoles, and we should be able to have more interoperability. And I guess while we're talking about staffing, I will tell you that I'm getting nervous about being able to staff dispatch 24/7. Our staffing model for years has been to train people in dispatch and grow them into police officers, much like Basil's told you about. So it's kind of been a self-feeding program from dispatch to patrol, and we put parking in there too, but I'm kind of out of people. And so I just want to give you a heads up. I might be coming back to you with a real problem here soon about what to do on an overnight shift or something like that. But these dispatch consoles have fully intended to be a part of a solution moving forward to work together with Bar Harbor if we have to do something very different.
Seems to be a.
sorry about my audio.
Never a dull moment.
Well, and just, and I've been involved in a lot of the fire conversations. There's a lot of hard work being done there. And one of the things I've been tasked with for years is to acclimate wages between our police departments. And we finally accomplished it last year. It took all this time. And this one budget cycle, I think, is going to destroy it because the two towns have different salary arrangements. And we've already had one policeman in our office last week upset because one town's going to get a bigger raise than the other one. And they're working the same shifts in the same cars. So I think there is a bigger conversation to be had here. And it's not for tonight. I understand that, but I certainly am willing to help.
That's right.
Did I give Mike enough break, Matt?
Excellent job, A+.
Dave's back with us.
Yeah, sorry about my audio.
I guess we have to do that broadband survey pretty soon, huh?
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
Yes,
That was exhausting.
it was. We'll do it again in a couple of weeks.
I know. I really do want to get a handle on this. I'm working on it.
Let's
Yeah.
vote.
Can I speak up too? We gotta get this thing over the finish line. We gotta get to the people in here. I don't care if it's a 42-hour shift or a 53-hour shift. We can't spend all this money building, spending all this money on renovations and then can't fill the shift. That's been my personal concern. And it's really important to do it. One, it's very, what we're doing is very complicated. I don't think it's been done in a lot of towns where you went from having a private ambulance service, correct? That all of a sudden became municipality ambulance service, plus taking your firefighters and making them full-time. So we're doing two major things at once. And that's where my compassion comes to all of you involved, and that's my concern. And I also sit in a place where I can help you get this thing over the finish line, because I can tell you, though, 20 people in the water committee are gonna ask a lot more questions than you heard tonight. And I mean, it's just out of confusion, just because they're not sure. And how many millions of dollars we spend on the building downstairs, Mike?
Well, we don't have any bids back.
But roughly.
Last estimate was 5 million.
All right, so we're gonna spend $5 million on a building. We're gonna renovate the Sonesville Firehouse for approximately how much?
I believe that's around 650.
So we're gonna have to pony up. We've had it good for a lot of years in this town. And you got people that live here, they come here for the summer and live here year round with their families that count on this service. And we gotta come up with something that works for everyone, and you gotta retain employees. That's, the HR piece is just as big.
And we gotta pay for it.
And we gotta pay for it. Well, again, my point was, we had it easy for a long time where, we had people that were generous to the town, we had, reality is sunk in.
Yeah. Well, I don't think anybody's arguing with you, Phil.
Yeah,
I think the whole point is that, is just getting to a level of understanding that allows us to make an informed decision.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Mike.
Yes, you're welcome.
Tom, thanks for coming. Thanks, Basil.
Thank you.
All right. Other business.
Please more.
Okay, no other business. Treasurer's warrants, town invoices, AP 2238, in the amount of $829,339.48.
Move approval?
Second.
All in favor? State fees and payroll benefits, AP 2235, AP 2237, PR 2214, AP 2236, in the amount of $126,694.65.
Move approval?
Second.
All in favor?
One abstention, please.
One abstention. School payroll, number 13, in the amount of $172,467.60.
Move acknowledgement?
Second.
All in favor? Great. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?